We were curious with the success that Dorchester County Public Schools has had in the improvement. What is the key thing that you think worked to bring about the change in its ranking?
I do believe it was a couple of things. I think first and foremost, we established where we wanted to go, like with a goal. So we knew that we were a 23rd school system in Maryland, and we knew that we knew as a district, we didn't want to continue being 23rd. So we had that in mind with just first setting a goal, I believe, of moving from 23rd, and the goal of not only moving from 23rd and going to 15, but also not returning to 23rd. So I think it began with early on in the year setting a chart of where we wanted to go and where we wanted to be in a couple years. So having a goal and having a destination of where we want to go. I would say two is accountability metrics that we decide as a district of holding each other accountable to the success of our students, and not accountability in a bad way, because everybody takes accountability as like a bad thing when it's not. It's accountability in that you were hired to do a certain job, and how can we help you do that job if you're struggling to do that job? So, and deliverables and things of that nature. So I would say accountability. And then we did action planning at the school level. When we say action plan, we had the principals put an action plan on how they're going to move students that were bubble students, move them forward. So a couple of students were a couple of points off. How are we going to move those students so they can be proficient? We did that. We did writing. We also looked at early in the year of writing. So a lot of our students didn't write on the MCAT. So if you don't write on the MCAT, you don't receive any points. So we stressed writing this past school year, of making sure that you were writing something. And they did initiatives at different schools of just journaling and just overall just being able to write. There's also schools that have MCAT one-to-one conferences with students, so which was a great thing, to where you're meeting with these students and you're going over where they were in the MCAP and making them understand the importance of passing the assessment. You also had MCAP classes or intervention classes at the high school level, where students were working on specific skills as it relates to their MCAP and where they needed to be more proficient at. And I think this overall change in the attitude of lastly, our curriculum, we did have a CKLA curriculum that's called Core Knowledge Language Arts Curriculum at the lower schools. And that was in this third year of operation. So if you look at our data, the third grade students, they scored pretty high in comparison to last year. So there's a lot of culminating factors, not just one thing. And we're going to duplicate the things that we did and add more for this upcoming year. With our strategic plan in place.
What is the current place for Dorchester County Public Schools in the ranking of Maryland's 24 districts?
So right now in ELA, we're 19, and in math, we're 20. I didn't think it was going to be this much of an impact, but if you really dig into the numbers, you'll see just how much work the teachers and the principals and the supervisors did this year as a district, because you got to really dig into the numbers and break them out and look at third grade proficiency. You got to look at eighth grade proficiency. You got to look at where they were last year versus this year. So you have a lot of improvement in a lot of areas across the district. That's why even the ranking saying we moved from 19 to 20, that's good. But if you even look further into the numbers, you'll see how much of an impact the work that the teachers and the principals did this year.
What would you say you did that was a change that was holding Dorchester students back, that you were able to surmount?
We're all hired here in our district, or school district anywhere. You're hired to improve student outcomes. You're hired to ensure that students are able to read, write, and do arithmetic, and also be good citizens in society. So we made the main focus, the main shift, academics, and how everything impacts academics. So we're keeping that main thing, the main thing of what we're hired to do, and that's teaching and learning for our students. So we say, okay, discipline is an issue, behavior is an issue. So how are we going to help change the behavior so it can have a positive impact on academics? Academics is the most important thing. Not saying that children's mental health ain't, but we're going to look at how their mental health is impacting their academic performance, not the other way around. And we're in the process of changing our mindset, and everything's evolving around a nucleus of academics, and then how these things impact the student performance. I think that's the main shift that we're continually trying to go on, and also making sure that we're trying to make this thing of education, which is difficult, but it doesn't have to be complex. It can be very simple in the terms of what you're doing. And we're trying to get away from doing a whole bunch of things and make the main thing, which is the academic performance. And how are we going to ensure that we're making it more of a simple process and not so complex? Because it doesn't need to be complex because it's already a hard profession by nature.
So within the academic sphere, where are the key areas of improvement that you still need to focus on, and which grades specifically?
We got to keep focusing on grades 3 through 8, 9 and 10, because those are the tested grades. But one thing that we know is a fact in education, we got to improve the foundation. So we got to make sure that the students have a stable foundation from the ground up, meaning from elementary school to secondary to middle school to high school. So we got to, all grades have to be improved. Focusing on that early childhood is key into the success of a kid later, because if you look at their attendance, if you look at students that struggle, they struggled in elementary school, but it doesn't seem to get remedied. And then they go throughout their whole careers struggling, and it doesn't get better if you're not putting things in place as they get to high school and middle school. So we're trying to prevent that from occurring. And also making sure that we have alignment, vertical alignment with our curriculum from grades 3 all the way up to 12th grade, and making sure there's not fragmentations of curriculum, and the interventions that we put in place to supplement what the students aren't able to grasp in the curriculum, making sure that's aligned as well. So that alignment piece is very key to continued success. And lastly, the implementation of it. It goes back to the teaching and learning, because if you don't have good teaching and learning, it doesn't matter what curriculum you have. It's just futile if it's not implemented in a well fashion.
Of the areas where the performance wasn't up to your hopes and expectations, what were those academic areas, and what's your strategy for improving in those?
We have to do different strategies to improve our math. Once again, going back to that alignment, once again, going back to our interventions and having targeted interventions. Another thing that we want to do is, you have all these standards that students have to master or teachers have to teach, which we know is not feasible because they can't teach the amount of standards that you want them to teach in that school year. So what we're working to do now is unpack those standards and have what we call power standards. So the 10 power standards, the 10 power standards will encompass everything a kid has to know and everything a teacher has to teach. So that's what we're in the process of doing that in our math program, and ensuring our interventions, once again, are aligned to what the students are weak in. I think one thing that the MCAT did good this year is point out the particular standards that each kid and grades are weak at. So we want to take those, the ideal thing would be to take those weak standards and put them in an intervention with those students that have those weak standards or weak in those particular areas, and intervene on those particular standards that the students are weak in.
So tell us about your expectations. How far up the rankings do you think you can get next year?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I would like to still see continued progress. It would be nice to get to 17. I think if we do what we're supposed to do, we got expectations this year. We have a new strategic plan. We got our core values this year. I think if we hold true to our core values and implement our strategic plan moving forward, I think that we'll be pleasantly surprised at where we land next year. I don't necessarily think about the rankings. Like this year, I never thought about it, like where we would land. I just wanted us to have some progress and growth. But I think that we will still have progress and growth next year. And where we land is where we land. But in 3 years, we want to be at least 15. That's what I can tell you for sure. That's where we want to be.